Hello, Adam Casey here, and I am coming with a July 24th dredging update. I know we've all been looking forward to one. I finally have some nice images to show where we are at and where we are headed to. So again, this is the July 24th, 2024 dredging update. First off, I have the obligatory zone map. This map is handy because everybody's familiar with these, and it's good to describe the areas. I do want to note that this map was created for the bond-funded dredging project that was finished in 2023. But again, that's pretty handy. So currently we are dredging in zone 4 on the west side of Point Eidolon. All the work in zones 1, 2, and 3 have been completed. The remaining portion, zone 1, was the first area that Dredge America had knocked out. There's a little spit of land right at the mouth of Bean Blossom Creek. That was the first thing that was gone in May, and then we've continued to work northward. So let me go to a little bit more of a detailed photo of where we're at. So this is Point Eidolon, and then kind of the northeast corner of Reed Point over here on the left of the screen. These images are from Dredge America, and actually a system that they use called a HiPAC. They took initial bathymetric surveys, and then there is telemetry equipment on the barge itself that monitors the depth of their cutter heads and the final depth after dredging. So what we see here is they reached to the northern part of zone 3, or really just the tip of Eidolon here. This is where they finished up, heading to the north. Then essentially they ran out of pipe there. We did additions of pipeline, and then now they're working on the western side of Point Eidolon. We will be coming back to this area and then getting into this was essentially zone 5 east side of Eidolon. One cool thing to note is that this is where the barge is currently at, this area just south of this lotus. This area is our vegetation maintenance line from DNR, so we will be dredging up to that line. They're currently in their last 2 passes to get to that line, and this was actually from a day ago, so they're probably right next to the line as well. After that, they'll be turning the corner. These red areas show areas that are about 5.5 or deeper. And then once you get down to the green areas, you're really between that 2.5 foot depth mark. So they have been working their way northward. We have made sure that the dredging has actually broken into the access channel that was along the west side of Point Eidolon. And it's pretty awesome now. All these boats on the west side, instead of having to take these access channels out, can now just reverse out of their dock and then hit the deep water into the lake. So pretty awesome to see that. I have been up in the area quite a few times to check on the dredging and talk to a handful of people that live along there. Well, I apologize for the noise of the barge. It seemed like the common consensus was that the barge was music to their ears, and they're just very thankful how visible the dredging is. We're actually cutting through Lotus now to get back to our maintenance lines. I do have some images of that as well. Here's a picture of the barge looking from Point Eidolon to the west. This is Reed Point over here. And you can see we're literally cutting right through this Lotus now. To the left of this screen, this is an area that has already been dredged. That was Lotus as well. One of the benefits of the dredging, besides safe recreation and boating, is that the Lotus generally will not grow in areas of 5-6 foot depth. So we really should see some cost savings on the vegetation treatment in this area, and it really will keep that Lotus tight to the vegetation maintenance lines. Next up, I have a little video here. Before I start the video, you can see this was all Lotus where the barge is at now. The cutter head actually kind of moves in a semicircle, which is why you can see the curves here as it moves forward. And here's a little video of it in operation. We'll see how that works when you play back the video. It looks pretty nice on here. I tried to do a video yesterday and it was a little choppy playing that, but we're gonna play it one more time. So this dredge is a beast and pretty awesome to see functioning. On the back of the dredge are two spuds similar to the barges that we had. But what this actually does is as this barge swings back and forth, it'll raise and lower those spuds and actually walk itself forward, which is pretty great. And then the pipe comes out of the back to go to our disposal channel. So again, this is us cutting up to the vegetation maintenance lines. It is incredibly visible. I was actually up there on the patrol jet ski yesterday, and it is pretty awesome to be able to drive through, see no mud kicking up in areas that were previously just straight vegetation and very minimal water depth. So after this, we will be moving. This was from a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago. We're looking at the areas and how we're going to progress through this dredging project. This area one, again, this is Eidolon right here. This area one on the west side of Eidolon is where we are currently at. Right now, we are cutting along this vegetation maintenance line here. And then they will be making the turn and actually going into this channel as far as they can reach with that barge. It is going to be interesting. They're not interesting. They will have to find ways to anchor that barge. There are two anchors that have to be on either side of that, and that will be the limiting factor of how far we can get into this channel. After that, we will move over to what the western portion of Zone 4 was, and really this is a northeast point or reed point. The biggest areas are right along this Lotus maintenance line. We have some very shallow depth right here, and then it quickly goes out to that 5 feet plus. So we will come over and cut approximately 200-foot wide path to knock down from our vegetation maintenance lines out to that 5-foot depth area. So this will really open up this corner in the northeast reed point. And even doing vegetation surveys, it is pretty tough right now to actually get in there because it is so shallow. After this, which we should be into within the next week, we'll be moving back over to the tip of Reed Point, or sorry, tip of Point Eidolon, and then to the east of Point Eidolon. The first area that we will do is knock out this portion just south of Eidolon and kind of square this up with the peninsula. That way you can come out of the access channel and shoot straight into deep water. This area right here has been ground truthed. They had an issue with their high pack and it wasn't recording data at that time, but that has been dredged and is uniform with the rest of these areas. After this, we will move to the east point of Eidolon, or east side of Eidolon. And the way that we are going to do this to ensure we get the maximum benefit is we're not going to work our way north all the way to our Lotus maintenance lines. We're actually going to go parallel to the access channel and shoreline. And that way we can ideally get this entire zone knocked out, this half of the area. And we can get the most area, get open water all the way to the homes in the back. And then we will move into this area 5 on this map. And that's really where we will reach our final quantities, whether that is due to water quality in the basin or ideally hitting our contracted amounts, which we should be able to do. So within the next week, week and a half, these zones west of Eidolon and east of Reed Point should be accomplished. Then we would move down to this area right at Point Eidolon and move up to eastern Eidolon. It is pretty awesome to see that. Last year, we were skeptical if we would even make it to the east side of Eidolon. So it is great to see that, and I'm sure everybody will be ecstatic in that area once we're there. This is a picture of the overflow pond on the south side of South Shore Drive and the Long Causeway. This is where we are placing the sediment at. This pipe way back here near the railroad tracks is actually where the sediment comes into the pond. It goes through that pipe you can see in the lake and then dumps into the pond. What you see is mostly water here. To the left side of the screen, that would essentially be moving east. That area is full, and you can't tell because it's under the water, and that's ideally what we would like to see. So we raise it to below the water level. That way we're not impacting any flood capacity. The flood capacity is essentially our normal pool level to the top of that causeway. We do not want to impact that at all. And then to ensure that we have the proper conditions for a wetland, you need to have water covering that area. So we are pumping right now into the overflow pond. It's actually going very well. We do have a new machine over there, which you may have seen driving by. In the past couple of meetings, there were concerns about some of the sediment coming above the normal pool level. Again, this is a construction project, so there are going to be things that we need to correct. So Dredge America brought in the swamp buggy, as they call it, which is essentially an excavator on pontoon float track, so it can travel through open water and across that muddy landscape in the very shallow areas. So they brought this down and then have been knocking down the high spots. So it's actually looking very nice out there. Yes, the water is muddy looking because we're pumping the sediment into there, but it's great to see this, clean water layer across the top, because that is the ideal conditions that we're looking for. This is looking to the east. And again, if you've driven by the past couple weeks, you have seen some high spots. Those are all now knocked down thanks to the use of the swamp buggy, and really kind of setting the conditions for our wetland project that will be going on next year. This is just an image of that area. We will be planting, the entire area as a wetland, approximately 17 acres. And at the last Saturday, July 20th board meeting, we did approve a request or proposal for the creation and maintenance of this wetland. It's a pretty specialized project, and that's why we're doing the request or proposals, to allow the wetland creation specialists to come in and kind of give us their ideas and plans of what they believe they can accomplish. Some of the companies that have shown interest in the past are pretty excited with how visible this area is, and they think they can create just a very beautiful addition that would be great for water quality, habitat, birds, just to create a very nice area there. And then this area will be in an environmental easement. So the RFP has been advertised, first time in the newspapers on Wednesday. And then we are expecting those to come in on August 12th. And the goal is to kind of open these and look who we'd like to work with at the August board meeting. Once we select the company based on the request or proposals, then we would enter into the contract phase. And that's where we would send off the proposals to IDEM and DNR, make sure that what they're proposing hits all of the requirements, all the success criteria are in there. And that's also where they can lay out the expected cost of maintenance for that 3-year period that we're mandated to maintain and monitor. So again, in 2025, we'll be planting the wetland. In 2026, we will have the beginning of a 3-year monitoring period to ensure success, or monitoring and maintenance period. And that will all be in the contract. We do have budgeted $200,000 in the 2025 proposed budget for this wetland creation and monitoring program. Again, go back to the funding next. So we're having some questions at the past board meetings that we received during emails about funding for the projects. and tax levels. The dredging is never going to stop in this area, and really we will be kind of doing these, larger scale projects. Hopefully not necessary on the current scale that we've been doing. Ideally, we can get into a kind of maintenance regime. Where every couple of years we're doing smaller projects more often, but we'll just have to see how much the area fills in and how effective it is. We actually have also completed a bathymetric survey in the areas that were dredged in 2022 and 23. And with that data, we've sent it to our engineers, and we will be looking to see how much sediment has come in since those dredging projects were completed. And really what we want to see is an increase in the sediment settling in those areas instead of making it so far into the lake. We would ideally like to capture that in a consolidated area so we can focus our efforts there in the future. So in order to afford these, we are going to need construction funds. I did just want to bring up the 2023 funding survey that was sent out to see how we are going to fund future projects, whether that was through donations to the Lake Limit Enhancement Fund, or whether that's through our special benefits tax. So far, there really hasn't been a big appetite for donating to a government that's already taxing you. So it looks like the kind of method for funding will be the special benefits tax, and that's what it is designed for. During the survey, we did have 248 freeholders take the survey and go through the responses, which is a huge number since we have approximately 520 homes around the lake. So it's very statistically significant having about half of the population take a survey. And another big item that came out of this was that about 60% of the freeholders that took the survey, some would agree to strongly agree that we need to maintain the current levels of maintenance and dredging, and we should do that through keeping the tax levels where they currently are. One misconception that has been going around is that everybody, even non-freeholders, were taking the survey. Of course, they're going to say we want taxes. That, however, is not true. This question was only proposed to those freeholders in the survey. So whether you are a freeholder, non-freeholder, recreational visitor, those all kind of went into different choose your own adventure surveys. So you get questions specific to how they impact you. So we are not planning any tax increases for next year, but in the budget meetings that we've been having with myself and the budget committee, which involves the board officers, we have looked at keeping the tax rate the same now, which would allow us to build up funds to achieve these future projects. One thing that we really didn't want to have to do is if we did a big tax reduction now and say in 2 or 3 years we need to do a project, and then we need to triple the tax again. We don't want the tax going up orders of magnitude every couple of years, and you never know what your taxes are going to be. We would really like to get that at a steady rate that allows us to put money into our construction account and allow us to have funds for the future maintenance. So here is a hypothetical 3-year dredging cycle plan, kind of from where we are now. In 2025, we'll be planting the wetland and beginning the monitoring and maintenance of that wetland as required through our permitting. In 2026, we would essentially build reserves for the future projects. Not to say there wouldn't be some small scale private dredging going on, but not a large scale LLCD funded dredging project. And then in 2027, we could begin to either clear the upland basin, and that may go in conjunction in the next couple of years as well, but that would be a goal to either have that basin cleared out or a new disposal site design completed. And we're working with both of those avenues at the moment to try to find places where we can get rid of, the dirt that's in that upland basin. There's approximately 135,000 yards of material. So if we were to take that all the way back to its an original condition, I mean, that is well over 10,000 triaxles of material. So we're not gonna, Chevy S10 half yard at a time our way into a clean disposal site. It is going to take a large project to clear that out. Having talked with the company that designed the site originally, they really said the trucking cost and clearing that out would be dependent on the location of our disposal site. So there are quarries on like the south and west sides of Bloomington where we could move this much material to. If we were looking at that, it was estimated pushing close to $1 million to truck all that material. If we can find closer sites, of course, that cost would be reduced because of time of trucking and distance of trucking. So we'll be looking into those. If we were to create a new disposal site, it'd be on the same order of magnitude as when we built the South Shore Drive upland site. So you're looking at probably that $400,000 to $500,000 to create a new disposal site. So looking at a 3-year cash flow example, and this is maintaining the current assessment for our sediment management, which is $425,000. In the year 2025, we'd have the $200,000 expense for the creation of the wetland and that monitoring contract. That essentially nets us $225,000 in our construction operating reserves. In 2026, again, keeping that at $425,000. I do have $25,000 in here as expenses. I do not anticipate any large scale expenses that year since we need to raise funding, but there will likely be something. So I went ahead and put that in there as a placeholder. Nets us $400,000 that year. Our operating reserves go to $625,000. Doing the same thing again in 2027 brings us right to $1 million in our construction fund operating reserves. And again, that's what we would need if we were to take out, if we had to pay 100% to truck all that material out of the South Shore upland site, or if we were to need to create a new site, you're looking approximately half that for the creation. And then if we were to do any dredging that year, we would have that funding. So really what we anticipate is that keeping at this current level will allow people to budget. You'll know what your taxes will be approximately. And then that really allows us to build up the funding for future projects. This is never going to stop, and it will be large scale projects throughout the future of the lake if we would like to maintain it. It has been amazing to see what can be done with these hydraulic dredges, especially with the machine that Dredge America has brought in this year. Kind of always said these first hydraulic projects were a test run. Well, it turns out they're very effective, and you can just move order of magnitudes material more than we ever could with our in-house operation. But again, there is cost associated with that. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to myself at the office, reach out to your district director. We love to explain, love to talk, and really I do kind of like these smaller one-on-one conversations, or even talking with some of the HOAs around the lake, because it really allows us to have a more candid conversation and then kind of hear concerns based on those specific areas. I know not everybody is comfortable coming to a board meeting, but utilize your directors. That's what they're there for. You've elected them. They are your public servants. Go to them with your ideas, concerns, and have them bring that to the board. It's been awesome what we have accomplished. Just being out on the lake, it is so visible. It's so great to see how much land we have reclaimed for the lake, and then seeing what can go into the future, and that there's an appetite for maintaining this lake and not watching it kind of shrink down and be claimed by Mother Nature. So that is our July dredging update. Thank you very much for listening to it. If you have any questions, again, please reach out. Thank you very much.